And welcome back to The Count. I'm Amanda Brilhanti alongside Mike Carter. Now, before we go, we want to count down some of the biggest media fails of the week. We touched on Jeff Zucker stepping down from CNN, but it doesn't end there. So we're going to bring back our panel, Dan Gaynor and Curtis Houck, to weigh in. But first, let's get to these right here. Now, ABC suspending The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg after comments she made about the Holocaust. Yeah, Deanna, you're going to be representing America at the Olympics coming up here in just about a month. What is this journey like to get to the trials when it comes to training your day-to-day? Well, I was over here practicing my swing. I don't know if it's a little bit of an underhand here. You're going to go across. Steve, how have you been handling this growing popularity and recognition? Conversation we've seen since he's left office is whether or not he was going to have a huge influence. And as we come into the next elections, what's going to happen there? And so being able to see both sides here and have this discussion, it gives you an idea of what Americans are kind of looking at, what they're thinking here. But speaking of politicians, Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema announcing she'll move forward on that Inflation Reduction Act. Now, this is giving Senate Democrats the votes they needed to pass. But this bill here, it's $700 billion. It's not all focused on inflation. Part of that money, $390 billion, is actually going to climate and energy. Brianna, is this a good idea?
Yeah, Rivera and Moore, they're part of their community. Like you said, they look like their community and they're protecting their community. Did you attend the funerals, and what was the overall emotions coming from the NYPD?
One thing I want to touch on real quick here that we're just getting news alerts about is Putin actually ordered deterrence forces, which includes nuclear arms.
Yeah, well, he's put them on alert.
And to recap, last hour we talked about inflation hitting a 40-year high at 8.6%. However, a recent survey showed more than 3/4 of chief financial officers expect the U.S. to go through a recession during the first half of next year. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says she doesn't expect the U.S. to actually tip into a recession. What are your thoughts here?
It's not sustainable here. I mean, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. There's parts of California where gas is more than that, almost $8, specifically in Northern California. I mean, people want relief here. That seems pretty obvious. I don't think anybody wants to be paying more for anything that we're buying. But with the policies we're currently seeing, is that possible at all in short term?
John, Governor DeSantis isn't the only politician to make this sort of decision. West Virginia Treasurer Riley Moore, a few weeks ago, he also banned from financial institutions, those 5 being BlackRock, Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. These are big banks here for the same reason, because of their policies with ESGs and their agreement. John, do you think more states are going to follow?
Also, this July jobs report, better than expected, but inflation still a major concern for Americans trying to make ends meet. We're going to be talking about that and some of the other business headlines this half hour.
And many are questioning why not one person from the White House came to the funerals of the fallen officers if they care so much about police officers. Well, joining us to discuss is host of the Michael Savage Show podcast and a good friend of the network, Dr. Michael Savage. Thanks for coming on. Dr. Savage, you lived in San Francisco. It's a very democratic city. You've also, in your book, For Our Fight for America, you wrote about Floyd, systemic racism. There's a problem with the police. This is something that Biden plans to address. What are your thoughts here? So when you go through it, it does say strawberries before it says pears and apples. However, you have both pears and apples in there, so are those combined going to be more than strawberries? And the man that's filing this lawsuit, his whole thing is, he usually does stuff like this. I think I read he's filed about 400 food-related lawsuits. He just wants food companies to be honest.
You know, and we should be able to ask questions and be able to get all the information we need to make the best decisions for ourselves or the best decisions with our doctors like you. But doctor, one of the things I want to point out is we're speaking about a COVID surge in fall, and we've also heard this term, you know, pandemic and the end of a pandemic, with Dr. Anthony Fauci even said. But can you kind of explain, you know, pandemic versus endemic?
All right, you guys. Now, she did issue an apology, but it didn't stop Twitter and many more from criticizing her. Users pointing out how other media hosts, Roseanne Barr and Gina Carano, well, they were fired over tweets that were deemed offensive here.
And that, you know, we're going to have to buckle down for the long run here. And you mentioned these gas prices. They're not expected to come down. Janet Yellen saying she doesn't expect them to come down. But she was also asked her thoughts on recession. Take a listen. But who decides why gas prices go up and up? Well, it's not one person, company, or government, with one gas price expert breaking it down into 4 basic factors: distribution and marketing, refining, federal and state taxes and fees, and the greatest influence here is the price of oil.
Forces move further into the country, troops entering more cities, and joining us now is Ruslana Danasyuk, who is sheltering in place there. Ruslana, how are you feeling?
But the price of gas hitting a national average price of $5 per gallon.
And one of the things I noticed that we're seeing in headlines is several schools and workplaces are now implementing virtual Fridays to help students and employees save gas because it's so expensive to get to work where they're making money. Jennifer, will the price of gas force us back to working from home?
Yeah, we'll see about that one. Going off of what Aaron just said, Bill Maher even said that 85% of Trump's endorsed candidates won. If Bill Maher is giving President Trump some sort of compliment here, I think that goes to speak for itself. But we're speaking of this party. Caller, you mentioned, is she really Republican here? John, do you think she's going to switch parties, maybe run on an independent ticket, maybe go to the Democrat Party? What's going to happen here?
You know what?
Yeah, stand by what you believe. But Liz Cheney is 22 points behind her opponent right now, according to some recent polls. Not only that, what we saw in Arizona, Carrie Lake won her race right there.
Every
As we
county.
know, she was backed by President Donald Trump, and that was a race I was looking for to see his influence. So, Brianna, what do you think about Liz Cheney's new ad?
Very tragic there. I cannot imagine the emotions that she and her family are going through with situations like this. Do you think international athletes need to be worried? So virtual sewing lessons there. There's some of the beauty of, what Zoom provided us during the pandemic. But one of the things, too, what are these tiny hugs made out of?
I think it's only fair. We got to do the Vulcan greeting over here. Can you do it as well?
I can't do it. I was trying it in the makeup room. I can't do it. You can do it, right?
I can.
Oh, my gosh.
This
You're
is my
talented.
hello, everyone. Vulcan greeting to all the Star Trek fans.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Amanda.